Hey guys, Mike Lewis here. We're going to deal with a topic that, not very many things bothers me, right? But one thing I can't stand is a critic. Now, on one side, I appreciate the critic. On another side, I just cannot stand a critic. And here's why. Because most times people criticize only because they're not doing anything worthwhile anyway, right? And so, I mean, what's the purpose of a critic? You can look at it a couple ways. One, a critic can be there to uplift you and motivate you to actually do something more, or a critic can be there simply to just destroy you. And what I see as I continue to speak to people from all walks of life is that most people, I don't want to say most people, but a lot of people are in a position where they can't handle a critic. And so anything that a critic throws at them, they take it in and they receive it as their own, and it literally destroys them. And so I came, to this realization a couple years ago is that critics are they're going to exist, right? There's no way that you can avoid a critic. My mentor shared this with me. He said, if you're not doing anything worthwhile, then you really don't have a reason for people to criticize you. So you always need to look at this as an opportunity to really just soar to new heights, because it simply means that you're doing something worthwhile. If you're not doing anything, nobody's going to mess with you. So look at it as a good thing that someone is actually, criticizing you. But on the flip side of that, you have to know how to handle them, okay? One of the sure ways to be able to deal with a critic is you have to understand your value. You have to understand your value. So many people suffer from a low self-esteem, and you got to understand who you are and what you bring to the table. When you truly get this, when you truly understand who you are and what value you bring to the world, I didn't say your local market, I didn't say the region. Listen, what value you bring to the world, critics become irrelevant. They really do. They become irrelevant. So many people give in to what people say about them. My mentor shared this with me years ago. He said 70%, statistically, 70% of the people that you call your friends right now have already made the decision whether or not they're going to attend your funeral or your burial site based on the weather condition that day. That's crazy to me. If 70% of the people that I called friends back then, way back then, I'm not talking about people now, but 70% of the people that I called friends way back then, if they've made the decision that they're going to attend my burial site or my funeral based on the weather, then at that point, I can care less what people think about me. And sometimes a lot of people ask me, how in the world could you take that shot from that person and that shot from that person? Listen, I know who I am. And if you understand who you are, there's no reason to get upset when people lie on you, right? You take for example, if you look at the a wooden podium, for example, a wooden podium, to the untrained eye, it appears to be just a podium. But when you break the principle down, the wooden podium comes from a source, and that source is a tree. Now, I can sit here all day long, or you can sit here all day long and say that that's a podium. And to a certain extent, I would agree with you, but to another extent, and when you look at the principle, I will say you're wrong. And the reason that I will say you're wrong is because the source of that podium came from a tree. Therefore, what you're looking at is a tree manufactured into a podium, or what we know as a podium. And so now, why is that important? Because people can lie on you, people can criticize you. Listen, you will be criticized for the rest of your life. Listen, they exist. Right? Jim Rohn said there's a lot of people that talk, or critics, there is really not a whole bunch of critics, but they like to travel quite a bit. So no matter where you go, you're going to get a critic. And so just deal with that. Just come to that realization. Critics exist, and it's okay. Now, taking back on the principle of this podium. So if you take the podium and realize that it's still a tree, then you can call it a podium, you can call it a desk, you can call it whatever you want. But the reality of it is still a tree. And so what you call a thing does not make it it. Let me say that again. What you call a thing does not make it it. This was so critical for me to understand, because When I began to understand who I was and whose I was, that's a key. We'll get into that later. When I understand who I am and whose I am, then the opinions of a critic was irrelevant to me at that point, because now I had an awareness of who I was. So now what I do today is I welcome the critics. I absolutely love the critic in my personal life, only because it's fuel and it's more of a benchmark to let me know, okay, Mike, you're doing something that's getting the attention or making an impact. Let me say it that way. You're doing something that's making an impact. And so I welcome the critic. And then I will never forget, a mentor of mine years ago said, we take the bricks that critics throw and we use those bricks to build a bridge in order for them to cross. That's heavy. You take the bricks that people throw at you and you take those and you build a bridge so that they can cross over. In other words, what does that mean? You take the shots, you take the lies, you take everything that they say about you, and you still turn around and offer a helping hand for those that are actually trying to tear you down. Because here's one of the key factors that I had to understand as well. Most people criticize because they see something in you and they just want a piece of it, meaning they want what you have. And so why not show them how to have the success that you've had in life? You don't have to hoard it. Listen, there's enough room for everybody here. And when you understand who you are, you will understand even more so. My philosophy is this: when you are walking in your purpose, there's no such thing as competition. And so a critic, therefore, is trying to compete with someone that they don't really have to compete with. And that's how I look at it. Honestly, you may agree, you may disagree, but that's how I look at it. A critic is only trying to compete, but there is no competition because I'm in my lane. I'm walking in my purpose, and therefore I can show him or her how to begin to discover what their purpose is, and then they understand that it was a lot of time wasted as a critic, but we can get back on the right track. And so I take the bricks and I build bridges for them to be able to cross. Listen, disregard the critics in your life. For real. Disregard the critics in your life. They will be there. Just don't become one. Just don't become one. Instead, look for ways to serve the masses. Look for ways to just give, give, give. Welcome the critics, but learn to ignore the critics. Let me say that again. Welcome the critics, but begin to learn how to ignore the critics. Hopefully that helped. Never hesitate to reach out to me if there's anything, any additional questions, any assistance that you need. I'm here for you guys. I love you guys. I appreciate your willingness to stick with me this far. Again, reach out to me. I'm here for you. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.